Good afternoon and welcome to today's community chat hosted by United's End Homelessness. I'm Sarah Heath and I am the Associate Director of Narrative Strategy and Public Engagement. And I am so glad you're joining us for this very special conversation. It's about creativity, storytelling, and community impact. Today, we're exploring how design can actually raise awareness, spark connection, and drive action to help end homelessness and address hunger here in our Orange County. We're joined by Trevor Girard, a designer whose work has appeared in collaborations with Stranger Things, and I had to look this up to make sure I'm saying it right. Katin and Brixton, just to name a few. Trevor recently partnered with us to design the limited edition, the Person in Front of You t shirt, which is the creative centerpiece of our Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week campaign. It unites Orange County residents to stand together for housing, addressing hunger, and sharing hope. This shirt is helping build curiosity and inviting people to our November 15th event. And it will continue the conversation after we have begun this whole event. After that, we're just continuing the conversation by people who come to the event, get to wear the shirt around. So thank you, Trevor, for joining us to share your story and your creative process. So after years of design for like lots of big names, my friend, major brands, what was it about this cause, this moment that made you want to bring your creative energy to a nonprofit effort that's just trying to show solidarity and raise awareness for housing and hunger here in Orange County, which is actually where you live?
Yeah, that's true. First of all, let me just say thanks for the intro and thanks for having me here. Yeah, I grew up here. I grew up in Orange County, lucky enough to call this my home. And what led me to contribute to this? Gosh, there's a number of things. Most of it is probably that I have friends and family that have been affected by the loss of home, loss of a place to stay, a loss of a place to live. And I have maybe not noticed that at times in my life. And then I think more recently it's really come to light. And I think kind of seeing it, zooming out and seeing the broader picture of just, hey, all of us need a place to live. We all deserve a safe and affordable place to live, right? That's kind of linked it all for me. So I think it's a really good cause. I think it's a cause that basically everyone can get behind, and it's something that we all need. And I would also say too, Sarah, that you're a big part of why I wanted to get involved, because I admire you.
Oh, thanks,
And
friend.
yeah, and we have a friendship, and I really respect, and there's a relationship here that makes me feel like connected to the cause also. So I would say, yeah, those are some of the things.
Well, I think that's kind of the hope of the t-shirt, right? Is to get people that personal connection. So if it's their friend wearing the shirt and then they ask them about it, you're hearing it from someone that like you care about, someone that you trust. And I think as we talk about how we're kind of in a time that can feel a little bit divisive, it's from people that we know and respect often that we're able to be brought into a cause in a way. So speaking about that, you've worked with a lot of recognizable, like lots of brands that all of us have heard of. But this is kind of a different sort of collaboration because you're working with dozens of organizations united by a shared mission. There's a lot of us on that call. How did this like collective purpose shape your creative process and the story that you wanted to tell when you're like in the midst of that? Such a different process, I would think.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I am used to working with uh, lots of different sizes of teams, and many different kinds of asks. I always look at design as a creative problem solving exercise. It's sort of like you have this acceptance of what the problem is, and then you try to come up with several solutions and kind of which one's going to be the best. I think for this particular project, it was really important to try to kind of cut through a lot of the noise and get to some really universal feelings and kind of evoke some very yeah, like I said, like kind of universal feelings that all of us, all human beings feel. We all want to feel like we belong. And so trying to appease all the different people involved or whatever, I kind of like removed myself from that and kind of just looked at this more as a human project. What is something that I think all people could kind of get behind and feel strongly about. So yeah, I kind of went with a bit of a cartoony take, and that's kind of part of what I do. There was a time in my career where I worked with some different skate brands, and this was a time in the industry where things were very like masculine heavy-handed and kind of, a little on the harder side. And like I used to get the nickname like the cute guy, or like he just does cute things, right? And at the time that was kind of like a ding, for a lot of reasons. But I made I made a little pin a long time ago, and it just said "Be kind," and it was a little bee icon, and it really connected people. It took off in a way that I didn't really expect, and people started getting it, and it kind of didn't matter that like cute wasn't necessarily the trend. I think it just got at a human feeling that we all want to feel kindness passed on to us, and therefore, hopefully thus we will then pass kindness on to others. So yeah, I kind of went with this like a little more friendly, welcoming, kind of communal look to the guy. You guys have named him Homie. I love that. That's a really perfect name, like no notes, 10 out of 10 name. And I will say too, like there's a little bit of a grit to the character, and that was
Yeah.
important. Whenever I think of social messaging or artwork that's kind of about actual social causes, I always think of Sister Corita Kent and her work in the 60s. Although she did a lot of stuff with typography, I feel like she always had like a human hand and a human element to what she did to kind of help tell the story of people, and not so much about perfect and everything being exactly, you know, um, logo corporate perfect. So I don't know. That was kind of like how I approached this, I guess. Hopefully that answered the question.
Oh no, that's so great. I think about art and how sometimes it's like, oh, it's just like a little guy, right? It's just a little
Mhm.
house. It's just a little house.
Yeah.
But even like the stance of him being seated, so he is,
Mhm.
he's invested in where he is. He's staying where he is. Homie is in Orange County. He also, one of the people that I was talking to about this, they were sharing like this whole notion of like it's almost childlike, and
Mhm.
when we are children, we can approach issues like this. It's a way of reaching people at a heart level that sometimes facts can't. So when you're a kid, how do we draw? We all draw a house, right? We all have that sense of like we all know at some deep level like this is what we're meant for, and whether that's a home that looks like an apartment or a home that looks like the house that we think of. I mean, in this day and age, it's all kinds of different things, but we know at a deep level, at a child level, that
Mhm.
everyone should have that. And so I kind of feel like, how do you look at this when you look at advocacy? Is it different from any other forms of advocacy you've seen before? How do you feel like art plays a role in advocacy?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think that art can be incredibly disarming,
Yeah.
and it can really, like you said, I think it can take us back to a feeling, a younger, more simple, maybe even like more primal, but essentially like more of a childlike feeling. Um, yeah, I just think that, um, you know, it's about kind of getting back to those basic kind of needs, those basic feelings that we all feel, the universality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I go a lot of times.
Yeah. It's interesting as I've been reading your different biographies, because we've been friends for a long time and I've never actually read your biography because it turns out you don't read your friends' biographies. But in it, it always says that you are human centered in your design. And I could definitely tell that even in the questions you were asking us, even though you're doing cartoon, it's clear that it's meant to sort of elicit a feeling. So this campaign really is meant to elicit some feelings. It's inviting hundreds of people to come together for one image, a literal picture of unity. What does, when you think of that, when you think of community as a designer, what do you hope people feel? Like, what do you think about when you think about community? What do you hope people feel when they're wearing this shirt?
Yeah. What do I hope people feel? I hope that they feel inquisitive. I hope
Mm,
that they feel playfully curious. I hope that it is pleasantly grating, just the
yeah.
right
Oh, I
amount
love
of
that.
grit, just the
Yeah.
right amount of like, wait a minute, do I think that? Do I agree with that? They think that? Kind of this question, I guess. I want it to kind
Yeah.
of bring up a question. And I think that was kind of what we talked about early on, is just allowing this to be kind of a conversation starter, a kind of a icebreaker, I guess, maybe, if you will. Like we were talking, I think we were talking about like being in line at like an amusement park or something, and just like the person in front of you having this on and kind of what that would look like. So yeah, I think if this can kind of help people remove some of the labels and remove some of the stigma and some of the judgment, and kind of we can hold off on that for a second and just notice that this person in front of you has feelings towards you without even knowing you, where they care. That's pretty powerful. And I think that could be really, it could invoke a lot of potential and just kind of those feelings of like I said, like kind of a positive curiosity.
Yeah, you and I talked about this idea of art can be a place of like starting curiosity or starting conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I just have this overall sense that story is a great way to start. So it builds curiosity, and curiosity is how we get to empathy. And sometimes empathy may have got a bad rap, but we know that empathy is a really human emotion. And if we're not able
Mm-hmm.
to feel what the person in front of us is feeling, we've lost sort of what makes us human. And so I should say the back of the shirt says the person in front of you wants you to have a safe and affordable place to call home. And so really the curiosity is like, well, I think when you first read that, your initial reaction is like, of course. But then
Mm-hmm.
what do we have to do as a community for people to have a safe and affordable place to call home? So I am wondering if you don't mind sharing a little bit, what gives you hope about the role that creativity and community can play in sort of building this future where people do have a safe place to call home? Like, how do you see artists, creatives, musicians? Because you and I both love music, so we know that's a big part of our world. What do you think? Like, what gives you hope as you think about that?
Yeah, that's okay. So what gives me hope? I grew up, and me and Sarah have talked about this many times. I grew up in kind of the underground music scene, punk scene, indie scene. A big part of that is kind of this DIY culture where you band together with your friends and you make stuff. And I think that the hope comes in the kind of the connective tissue between people, the relationships, and I get hope from a friend of mine, and I think my friend of mine, can get hope from me. And I think it's when we kind of can unite on a similar cause, that's what can really start to build a lot of hope. Because at times the world can feel hopeless, and it can feel like who's going to show up, but I do think when we can see each other a little more clearly, and we can kind of form those bonds between us, we can be the hope for each other. That's
Yeah,
kind of how I see the hope showing up.
I love that. I love the idea of, again, that thing that you and I have been talking about so much. It's like building that bridge to curiosity between each other. Like, I may not know what you mean when you say a safe and affordable. Well, what does affordable mean? Well, it depends on who you are and what does that look like, and what does that look like for you as a family of four versus me as a single adult. There's all these different questions which really can only be answered in ways that move us if we're talking to each other face to face. And I think it's a unique thing about this campaign is it's really hoping to have people kind of take ownership of addressing the person in front of them and also standing for the person in front of them. One of the folks who has lived experience in our community said, when I see this shirt, I really do feel like the person who is wearing it feels that for me. Like they're taking it,
Wow.
and beyond that, if there's someone who is an elected official or whatever it might be, it's like, what are you doing to make sure that is true and that that is happening? I think it's this
Yeah.
lovely, yeah, lovely moment and invitation, I would say. So I just want to see, is there anything else you would like to share with us as we sort of begin to wrap up a little bit? Is there anything you want to make sure that we kind of know about the shirt, that we know about creativity? Is there anything that all these questions spark? Because you and I were like really careful. We wanted to make sure we only took it to 30 minutes. So I want to make sure if there's anything you want to share.
Yeah, well, I don't know where we're at on time, but I do think that in working on a project like this, it is really important to. You're speaking about community, and I was thinking about community a lot. Like, community is kind of a confusing word these days. There's kind of like a online community. There's
Hmm.
this community. There's communities we're forced into. There's other ones that we adopt ourselves, and everything in between. But I do think that it does kind of fall on every single one of us to pitch in and chip in where we can. And so that's why I would say, like, acts of service like in your own community are really important. And whatever that community looks like, whether it is online or whether it's, in your city, I do think showing up in your own small, even if it is just a small way, can make all the difference.
I think I'm reminded sort of a big portion of this is the online. So if you're not following us, go to Instagram. We have a person in front of you, the longest Instagram name of all time. We do own that account, and you'll be seeing what's really cool is for those of us that kind of crafted the campaign to log in and see people from all different walks of life that are wearing the shirt and owning it. Today we had a guy who was a runner. And he did the greatest little reel talking about we had a race car driver. We've had moms of Newport. We've had all these different sort of communities say that this really matters to them. And I think that's sort of what art can do because it allows you to approach it in a different way and to
For
sort of,
sure.
yeah, there's a lens.
Yeah.
Like, so um, there's a lens that when we look at something, we don't realize that sort of we're bringing our own, you can't ever not bring yourself to how you look at art, right? Um,
Right.
I I tell a story of when I was in high school and I had this art show that I got to do in a mall. And I was listening to a guy talk about what he saw in my art piece. And I was just thinking, no, I just like the colors. Like it didn't have that same, but had so much meaning for him.
Right.
And I think that's like what I love about this curiosity and online people are getting to show their communities how they're experiencing this invitation. But we have some shared understandings and it's how do you feel like that plays a role, like even this online community? Where have you seen that being done well? Because you've built quite a large following from the Stranger Things folks, and they're pretty serious about community. How do you see that playing out as far as actually creating community online?
Yeah, that's, man, totally. People, especially now, fandom is like bigger than I've ever seen it. I mean, I feel like when I was a kid, it was like you're almost embarrassed to be a fan of certain things, and now it's like people just want to, fly the flag of whatever it is that they're into. I do think I think a lot about kind of like iconography and just like how images can unite us.
Hmm.
I think people want to be a part of something. If I'm going to wear a shirt with a certain logo on it or a certain band, logo or something, I think that the goal there is to like let other people around me know I've bought into that community, that group, whatever it is.
I'm a
And
Swiftie. Swifties love a
yeah,
shirt.
is there like a one like Taylor Swift shirt? I didn't know maybe there was.
There is like a era. There's like
Oh, the
a
Eras one.
Eros
Yeah.
tour shirt that like lets
Hmm.
people know you were there, you were
You were
part of it,
there. Yeah,
right?
and that's, yeah, so like you were there, you were part of it. There's like an authenticity piece to that. And
Hmm.
um it can be a very powerful engine. And with something like Stranger Things, it's fun and it's
Yeah.
like it's cool, but it is a little empty at the end of the day. It's a show. It's not there's not a real movement behind it, and it's just entertainment, and it's a great story, and I love it. I was a fan long before I worked on it. But I do think when you have an image that can drive something that actually has substance to it, it actually has a cause, really powerful things can happen because there's more connective tissue in the relationships behind those images, that logo. So I would say like communities kind of being able to rally around an image. The image just becomes the most boiled down, kind of purified marker of kind of that group, and it might not even take much to buy into that group. You might just wear the shirt and represent the cause. Like it doesn't have to be more than that necessarily.
Yeah, I one of the guys who's wearing our shirt is a runner, and I run with him. And I walked up on him explaining because we give an FAQ card for everyone who gets the shirt, also gets an FAQ card, and he was explaining to the table what the actual statistics. So it's like this thing. He actually it's a movement behind fashion. At first, he just thought the shirt was cool because it said the person in front of you, and when you're a runner, you love to point out that you're in front of someone. And he started talking about how like guys, the things we think about homelessness is it's not right. Like, did you know like the number one cause actually has to do more with like affordability? And I was like, this is everything I've ever hoped for as a
That's
narrative
it,
strategist.
totally.
Yeah,
And how amazing that he brings something that even for you, like you weren't even aware of. And it's like we need each other in that way. Like there might be
absolutely.
some deep cut Stranger Things fact that I definitely don't know, and some super fan has to like illuminate me or whatever. But yeah, like we all bring something to the table, I think.
Well, Trevor, thank you so much for using your creativity, your insight, your heart for this community. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope that this conversation inspires you to use your own creativity for a force for good. Let's spark awareness together. Let's spark compassion together. And let's also spark some action together. So you'll soon be going to receive a follow-up email. It's going to have the recording, also the campaign links, because we would love, if you are local to the area, for you to join us at the Person in Front of You aerial photo event, which is on November 15th. If you're in Orange County, that's 2025. If you're watching this later. Before you go, we just want to say again, thank you so much to Trevor. We can use creativity to tell a new story for Orange County. And it's one that we hope will have everyone having a safe and affordable place to call home. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of you being part of this movement, the Person in Front of You.